The sun was sinking behind the wide desert hills, and the air was painted with soft red and golden light. Raffi walked slowly along the rocky path, carrying a small bag on his shoulder. He often came here to search for stones and pieces of old metal that could be sold in the town market. The desert was harsh, but sometimes it revealed forgotten things from long ago. Raffi did not have much in his life, yet his eyes always carried a quiet hope when he searched the sands. That evening, as the wind grew cooler, he noticed something unusual near the base of a cliff. A half-buried object glinted under the last rays of the sun. At first, he thought it was only a broken pot or a rusted tool left behind by travelers. But when he cleared away the sand with his hands, he found a vessel unlike anything he had ever seen. It was made of metal, heavy and smooth, with patterns carved along its surface. The carvings looked strange, not like the lines of any language Raffi knew. They curved like flowing rivers and formed shapes that seemed alive. The vessel was sealed at the top with a thick cap, and despite being buried in the desert, it shone faintly, as if it carried its own light. Raffi felt a sudden shiver run through him. He held the vessel close and studied it carefully. It looked valuable, but more than that, it felt alive in some hidden way. His heart beat faster. The desert was often full of silence, yet in that moment, he felt as if the air around him was waiting. He thought of taking it back to town and selling it, but his curiosity grew too strong. He sat down on the sand, holding the vessel firmly. His hand brushed across one of the carvings, and to his surprise, the metal grew warm under his touch. He rubbed the side of the vessel again, almost without thinking. A low hum spread through the air. The sand around him shifted as if pushed by an unseen wind. Raffi jumped back, his eyes wide, as the vessel trembled in his hands. Then, in an instant, a burst of bright light shot upward, swirling like a storm of stars. From within the light, a figure slowly appeared. She was tall and graceful, her form glowing as if shaped from pure moonlight. Her eyes shone like clear water, and her voice carried a calm, powerful tone. "I am Nira," she said softly, her words echoing in the still desert. "Long have I slept, bound to this vessel. At last, I awaken, and I am bound to you, the one who called me. I will grant you 3 wishes, as is my duty." Raffi could not speak for a moment. His mouth was dry, and his thoughts stumbled. He had heard old stories of spirits and magical beings, but they were tales for children, not something he ever believed. Yet here she stood, her presence as real as the desert sand beneath his feet. He finally managed to whisper, "You are real." Nero looked at him with quiet strength. "I am as real as the stars above us. You have freed me, and in return, I must honor the law of wishes. Ask, and it shall be given." Raffi's heart raced. The thought of wishes, of gaining anything he desired, pressed heavily on his mind. He could ask for wealth and never struggle again. He could ask for power to rise above everyone else. He could even ask for endless life. The possibilities stretched before him like the desert horizon. Yet as he looked at Nira, something strange stirred in him. She did not smile, nor did she look pleased. Her face carried the weight of someone who had seen too many years and too many promises broken. Raffi lowered his gaze, thinking deeply. For the first time in his life, he realized that the chance before him was greater than anything he could have imagined. But it was also a chance to ask something different, something no one else might ask. The desert wind blew softly, lifting grains of sand around them. The vessel lay empty now at his side, its light fading into the earth. The night sky was rising, stars slowly appearing one by one. Raffi felt as if the universe itself was watching to see what he would do next. He took a deep breath, his voice steady though his heart still trembled. He said, "If I truly have 3 wishes, then my first is not for gold or land. I wish to understand you, Nira. I want to know your story. I want to know why you were placed in that vessel." For the first time, Nira's calm face changed. Her eyes widened slightly, and a faint glow shimmered around her. She seemed almost uncertain, as if no human had ever spoken such a request. The magic that bound her stirred, pulling her to answer. Her voice softened, carrying a hint of surprise. "You wish to know me?" "Yes," Raffi said firmly. "That is my first wish." The desert grew silent again, but this silence was different. It was not empty. It was full of a new beginning. And in that moment, the bond between human and genie was formed. The desert night had grown darker, and stars filled the wide sky. Raffi sat on the sand with the strange feeling that his life had just changed forever. Before him stood Nira, the genie who had been bound to the vessel for ages. Her glow had softened after his first wish, but her presence was still bright against the quiet desert. Nira's eyes studied him with care. She had expected him to ask for gold, power, or long life. That was what most humans desired, or so she believed from the countless years of her imprisonment. But this man had asked for something different. His first wish had not been for himself but for her story. That wish pulled at the threads of her magic, forcing her to open memories she had long kept locked. At first, she hesitated. "No human has asked this before," she said in a low voice. "You could have taken kingdoms. You could have asked for treasures beyond your dreams. Yet you ask for my story, the tale of one who has been forgotten." Raffi nodded slowly. "I do not want to waste such a chance. I saw your face when you spoke of wishes. You did not look happy. I want to understand why." The genie lowered her gaze. Her form shimmered faintly as if touched by unseen winds. Then she began to speak, her voice carrying both strength and sorrow. "Long ago, I was not bound to a vessel," she said. "I walked freely under many skies. I was not only a genie but also a guardian. My kind traveled across stars and worlds, helping young civilizations grow. We gave guidance and light where darkness was strong. That was our purpose." Raffi leaned forward, listening closely. Every word painted images in his mind. He imagined tall cities glowing under alien suns and beings filled with wisdom moving through the skies. "But," Nira continued, her tone heavier, "not all welcomed us. Some feared us, for we had power they could not match. There were warlords who ruled with iron and fire. They saw us as threats to their control. They feared what would happen if humans and other beings listened to us more than to them. So they hunted us. Many of my kind were destroyed. The rest were trapped, sealed inside vessels, hidden across deserts, oceans, and mountains." Her words carried centuries of weight. Raffi felt his chest tighten as he imagined her long suffering. "So you were imprisoned here," he said softly. "Yes," she replied. "For countless years, I have slept, waiting for one to awaken me. Each time, the law of wishes forced me to serve. I gave humans what they asked for, but rarely did they use it with wisdom. Many became greedy, their own desires destroying them. And so my burden grew heavier, for each wish given made me believe less in kindness." The desert wind whistled faintly between the rocks. Raffi looked at her glowing form and felt a strange sadness for her. He thought of how lonely it must be, trapped for ages, meeting humans only when they sought selfish gain. Now you know my story, Nira said. Your wish has been answered. Raffi nodded, but his heart was not satisfied with just knowing. He could see the pain in her voice, and it stirred something inside him. I am sorry you were trapped, he said. You deserved better. You helped others, yet you were punished for it. That is not fair. Nira's eyes softened. For a moment, her glow flickered like gentle firelight. You speak with honesty. Most who hear my story only see it as a chance to take more from me. Yet you show sorrow for my suffering. Raffi looked down at the empty vessel lying half buried in the sand. It seemed lifeless now, but it had been her prison for ages. He wondered how many nights she had felt the weight of time pressing down on her. What will you do now? He asked carefully. I cannot leave, Nira answered. I remain bound until your 3 wishes are complete. That is the law of the binding. Only when the last wish is spoken can the magic release me, or bind me again for another age. Until then, I am tied to you. Raffi thought about this deeply. He knew he still had 2 wishes left. That power was enough to change everything in his life. Yet he also knew that each choice he made would affect not only him but also Nira. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing harder than ever. He looked back at her. Then until the last wish, I will not treat you as a tool. I will treat you as a friend. Nira blinked slowly, surprised by the word. Friend, she repeated. Yes, Raffi said with quiet certainty. If you are bound to me, then I want us to walk together as equals. You are not only a genie. You are someone who has lived, who has seen worlds I cannot even imagine. That makes your life worth respect. For the first time, Nira's face softened into something close to a smile. It was faint, but it carried warmth that had been absent from her for ages. The night grew colder, yet the air around them felt lighter. The bond between them had shifted. No longer was it only a genie and her master. Something new had begun, a trust born not from power but from understanding. As the stars shone above, Raffi felt that his first wish had given him something more valuable than gold or power. It had given him a window into another life and perhaps the start of something that would shape both their paths. And though Nira remained bound by ancient magic, in that moment, she no longer felt like a prisoner. The desert dawn came slowly, painting the sky in shades of soft orange and pale gold. Raffi had not slept the whole night. He sat near the dying fire, the vessel lying empty on the sand beside him, while Nira rested a short distance away. Though her form was bright, she seemed calmer in the morning light, less like a spirit of myth and more like a being who carried the weight of countless years. Raffi's mind kept returning to her story. He imagined the stars she had crossed, the people she had helped, and the warlords who had feared her. He wondered how someone who had once moved freely across worlds could endure centuries of silence within a metal prison. When Nira opened her eyes, her gaze was thoughtful. She studied Raffi as if measuring his heart. You did not sleep, she said. Raffi smiled faintly. I could not. I kept thinking of all the things you must have seen. The worlds, the skies, the lives beyond this desert. It is more than I can understand. Nira's voice carried a quiet strength. The universe is wide, Raffi. I have seen seas that stretch farther than this desert, mountains that rise higher than clouds, and cities that shine brighter than the stars. Yet none of them remain forever. Power and beauty fade when they are not guarded with care. That is what many beings forget. Raffi listened closely. Her words did not sound like lessons from a teacher but memories from someone who had watched ages pass. He felt a strange longing in his chest, a wish to see those wonders with his own eyes, though he knew he might never leave the desert. "You said you helped young civilizations grow," Raffi asked. "How did you do that?" Nero looked to the horizon, where the sun was climbing. "We shared knowledge. We taught them how to build homes that lasted, how to heal wounds, how to farm so their people would not starve. But more than knowledge, we gave them hope. We reminded them that they were not alone in the universe. Sometimes, that hope was the strongest gift of all." Her words struck Raffi deeply. He had grown up in a town where life was simple but hard. Many people struggled each day, dreaming only of enough food or a little coin. He thought of what hope could mean to them, what it could mean to him. "You are different from the stories," Raffi said at last. "The old tales speak of genies who trick humans, who twist wishes into curses. But you do not seem like that." Nira's eyes softened. "Stories are often shaped by fear. Perhaps some of my kind grew bitter, perhaps some lost their way. But I never wished to harm those who called upon me. I only wished to see kindness in return. Yet kindness was rare." Raffi lowered his head, thinking. "Maybe that is why I wanted to know your story. If no one ever asked before, then no one ever gave you a chance to be more than a tool. That does not feel right." For a long moment, Nira said nothing. The desert wind brushed against them, carrying the faint scent of dry earth and distant grass. Then she spoke softly, "You remind me of someone I once knew. Long ago, there was a young leader who listened to me with the same respect you give. He did not live to see old age, but his people remembered him as one who cared for them more than for himself. You carry that same spirit." Raffi felt warmth in his chest at her words. He had never thought of himself as special. He was only a man who collected stones to sell for a few coins. Yet hearing her speak that way made him believe that perhaps his choices could matter more than he imagined. As the day grew hotter, they walked together across the sands. Nira floated lightly above the ground, her presence shielding them from the harshest heat. Along the way, Raffi continued to ask questions. He asked about the ships she had seen, about the beings with wings of silver, about the rivers that glowed under twin moons. Nira answered patiently, describing sights that made Raffi's heart race with wonder. In return, she asked about his life. She wanted to know how humans lived in the town, what they ate, what songs they sang. Raffi laughed softly as he told her of small festivals, of children running through narrow streets, of old men telling tales by the fire. They were simple things, yet he shared them with joy. Nero listened with quiet interest. "Even in your small world, there is beauty," she said. "Perhaps I had forgotten that. Perhaps I spent too long looking only at the stars." Their journey that day was not for treasure or power but for understanding. Step by step, the bond between them grew stronger. Nira no longer looked at him as just the holder of wishes, and Raffi no longer looked at her as only a spirit bound by magic. They began to see each other as companions on a path neither had expected. That night, as they rested under the stars again, Raffi looked at her and said, "If I never use another wish, I would still feel rich. You have given me more than I ever dreamed. You have shown me a greater world." Nira's glow flickered softly like a flame touched by gentle wind. For the first time in centuries, she felt something close to peace. The days passed quietly as Raffi and Nira traveled together. Though the desert was harsh, the nights became less lonely. Raffi had grown used to her glowing presence. He no longer saw her as a mysterious spirit but as a companion who shared stories of faraway skies. Nira, in turn, found herself speaking more freely, as if the silence of centuries was finally breaking inside her. But peace in the desert is often short. One evening, as the sun sank low and painted the sand in fiery colors, Raffi noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it was only desert travelers or perhaps merchants on their way to another town. But the figures did not follow the usual paths. They moved with purpose, closing in on his camp with quiet speed. Nira sensed it as well. Her glow brightened, her form becoming sharper as if prepared for danger. "We are not alone," she said calmly. Rafi's hand tightened around the small knife he carried, though he knew it was little protection against unknown enemies. He stood, watching as 5 men emerged from the shadows of the dunes. Their clothes were worn, their faces rough, and each carried weapons, curved blades and short rifles that glimmered in the fading light. The leader stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the vessel lying near Rafi's bag. His voice was cold. "So the stories were true. The vessel has awakened." Rafi's chest tightened. He realized that word must have spread. Someone must have seen the light the night Nero was freed, and rumors traveled fast in barren lands. These men were not simple travelers. They were treasure hunters, men who sought power they did not understand. "We do not want trouble," Rafi said, standing tall though fear pressed against him. "Leave us, and you will be safe." The leader laughed harshly. "Safe? Do you know what that vessel is worth? Entire kingdoms would pay for it. The stars themselves would open their doors to us. No, boy, you cannot keep such a treasure. Hand it over." Rafi glanced at Nira. Her eyes burned with quiet fire. She whispered, "They do not seek the vessel alone. They seek me." The hunters moved closer. One raised his weapon, pointing it at Rafi. "Stand aside. The genie belongs to us now." Something inside Rafi flared. He remembered Nira's story, the centuries of being used, the humans who saw her as nothing more than a tool. Anger rose in him, stronger than his fear. He stepped forward, blocking their path. "No," he said firmly. "She does not belong to you. She is not a prize to be sold." The men laughed again, though there was a trace of unease in their voices. The leader raised his hand, signaling his men to surround the camp. "You are a fool, boy. Do you think you can stop us?" Nira's form blazed brighter. "Leave now, or you will regret it." Her voice carried power, echoing across the sand. The hunters hesitated for a heartbeat, but greed clouded their minds. They rushed forward. Rafi's knife flashed in his hand, but he was only one man against many. The hunters struck with speed, and the clash filled the desert night with sharp sounds. Rafi fought with all his strength, but he was pushed back step by step. One blade cut across his arm, and pain surged through him. Seeing him stumble, Nira's voice thundered with command. "Enough." Her glow burst outward like a wave of starlight, throwing the hunters back across the sand. Their weapons clattered to the ground as they shielded their eyes from the blinding light. For a moment, the desert itself seemed alive with her power. The leader struggled to rise, his face twisted with fear. "She is real," he gasped. "She is worth more than we imagined." Nira stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "You have no right to claim me. I am not your prize." Her power pulsed again, shaking the air. The hunters, shaken and broken, scrambled to their feet. They fled into the darkness, leaving their weapons behind. The desert swallowed them quickly, their shouts fading into silence. When the last of them vanished, Nira's glow softened. She turned back to Raffi, who was breathing heavily, blood marking his arm. Her face carried concern, though her voice remained steady. "You are hurt." Raffi shook his head, forcing a faint smile. "It is nothing. I am still standing." But inside, his heart was heavy. He realized this attack was only the beginning. If word of Nira's awakening had reached these hunters, it would spread further. Stronger enemies would come, not only from the desert but from across the stars. Nira seemed to know the same truth. She looked at the broken vessel lying in the sand and said quietly, "The hunters will not stop. Others will come." The power of a genie draws greed like fire draws moths. Raffi clenched his fists. He could not let her fall into the hands of those who would chain her again. Yet he also knew he was only one man, small against the vast dangers that might come. As the fire burned low, silence filled the camp once more. Raffi and Nira sat together, both lost in thought. The bond between them had grown stronger, but so had the threat around them. The desert was no longer just a quiet land of sand and stars. It had become a place where danger hunted them, and their journey was only beginning. The desert night was cold, and the fire had almost died. Raffi sat with his back against a rock, pressing cloth against the cut on his arm. The wound stung, but it was not deep. Nira stood nearby, her glow dimmer than before. She watched him closely, her eyes filled with quiet concern. "You should rest," she said softly. Raffi shook his head. "I cannot rest. Those men will return, and they will not be the last. You said others may come, and I believe you. I must be ready." Nero looked at him for a long moment. Her voice carried a hint of sadness. "You are brave, Raffi, but bravery alone will not stop them. You are human, and your strength has limits. Against swords and rifles, you cannot fight forever. Against the ones beyond this world, you cannot fight at all." Her words cut deep, for he knew they were true. He was only one man with a small knife and a will to stand. Yet the thought of giving up never entered his heart. He thought of Nira's long years of silence, of the hunter's greedy eyes, and of what would happen if she was taken again. He could not allow it. "What if I made another wish?" Raffi asked quietly. Nira turned her gaze to him sharply. "You would spend your second wish now?" "Yes," Raffi said with steady voice. "I do not need wealth or kingdoms. What I need is strength. I want the strength to protect you, even if the whole desert rises against us. That is my wish." For the first time, Nira seemed caught between surprise and hesitation. "Strength is not a simple gift, Raffi. It can build or it can destroy. Many have wished for power before, and many have fallen because of it." Raffi met her gaze with firm eyes. "I do not ask for power to rule. I ask for the strength to guard what matters. I do not want to see you chained again. I will not let them take you." The desert wind whispered between them as silence stretched. At last, Nero lifted her hands, her form glowing brighter. "Then so be it. Your second wish is granted." A wave of light flowed into Rafi's body. At first, it felt like fire burning through his veins, but the pain quickly changed into something else. His breath grew deeper, his heartbeat steadier, his limbs stronger. It was as if the desert itself had poured its endurance into him. His senses sharpened, he could hear the wind shifting across distant dunes, and his vision caught details he had never seen before. When the glow faded, Raffi stood tall, no longer weary. He flexed his hand and felt the strength pulsing inside him. It was not the strength of endless magic but of a man whose body had been pushed to its true limit. Nira studied him carefully. The wish has taken form. You are stronger now, faster, more enduring. Yet remember this, Raffi. Strength means little without wisdom. If you lose yourself to anger, this gift will turn to ruin. Raffi nodded. I understand. I will use it only to protect. The next day tested him sooner than he expected. As the sun rose, shadows appeared on the horizon again. This time it was not 5 men but nearly 20, armed and determined. Word of Nira's awakening had spread quickly. Raffi gripped his knife and stood at the edge of the camp. His heart no longer shook with fear. His body felt alive, filled with steady fire. When the hunters charged, he moved with a speed that shocked even him. His knife struck true, and his steps carried him like flowing wind. Blades clashed, rifles fired, but he was faster, stronger, and unyielding. Nira stood beside him, her power flashing like lightning. Together they held the hunters back. Sand flew under their feet, cries filled the air, and the battle raged. Raffi felt wounds strike him, but his body endured. Where once he would have fallen, now he stood firm. The hunters soon realized this was no ordinary man. Fear entered their eyes as they saw him fight with unbroken will. Some fled, others fell, until the desert was silent again. Breathing hard but steady, Raffi lowered his knife. His body ached, yet he remained standing. He looked at Nira, who glowed with calm strength. You fought well, she said, her voice carrying respect. Your wish has given you what you desired. But more than strength, it was your heart that carried you through. Without it, no wish could have saved us. Raffi smiled faintly, wiping dust from his face. I told you. I only wanted to protect. Yet deep inside, he understood something greater. His second wish had not only changed his body, it had changed his spirit. He no longer felt like the poor stone gatherer who searched the desert for coins. He felt like someone who could stand against the weight of the world if it meant guarding what mattered. That night, as they rested by the fire, Nira looked at him for a long time. There was no command in her eyes, no distance. Only quiet respect. Few would use a wish as you have, Raffi. Most would take for themselves. But you gave your wish for another. Raffi shook his head gently. I did not give it for you alone. I gave it for us. We are bound together until the last wish, and I will not let the bond be broken by greed. The stars spread across the sky, endless and bright. Nira tilted her head toward them and whispered, almost to herself, perhaps there is still hope for humanity after all. The desert was quiet after the battle, yet Raffi knew peace would not last. The hunters had been driven away, but others would soon follow. Word of Nira's power had already spread like fire in dry grass, and greed always traveled faster than the wind. That night, as the flames of their campfire flickered, Nira sat across from Raffi, her glow soft against the dark. She looked at him not as a genie bound to a master but as someone who shared the same path. Her eyes carried thought, and her voice was slower, as if she weighed each word before speaking. You now hold 2 wishes, she said. One remains. Raffi nodded silently. He had thought about it since the moment his second wish was granted. The last wish held more weight than the others. It was not just about what he could gain but also about what it might mean for Nira. You said once that when the last wish is spoken, you may be released, Raffi said carefully. Does that mean I can set you free? Nira looked at the stars before answering. Yes. If your final wish is for my freedom, the chains that bind me will break. I will no longer be tied to a vessel or to the will of any human. I will be free to walk the skies once more. Her words carried both hope and sorrow. The thought of freedom filled her with longing, yet there was something in her voice that revealed hesitation. And if I do not? Raffi asked. Then I remain bound, Nira said. When your wishes end, another may find the vessel. The cycle would begin again. I may be called by those who do not see me as you do. I may be chained for another age. Raffi's chest tightened. He imagined her once again trapped in silence, waiting for centuries, only to be found by someone who would use her for greed. The thought felt unbearable. Then I must wish for your freedom, Raffi said. His voice was firm, yet there was a weight in his heart. Nira studied him. Her gaze was steady, but her tone softened. If you free me, I will no longer remain by your side. The bond between genie and master would end. I would go where the stars call me, and your journey would continue alone. The words struck him harder than he expected. He had grown used to her presence, the glow that lit the desert nights, the stories that filled his silence, the strength that walked beside him. To think of losing her felt like losing the very light that had entered his life. I see, Raffi said quietly. He looked at the fire, the flames dancing like restless spirits. Nira lowered her voice, almost gentle. You must choose, Raffi. Keep me bound, and I remain at your side, but my chains will never break. Free me, and you lose me, but I gain the life that was stolen from me. This choice belongs to you. The night stretched long. Raffi sat in silence, his thoughts heavy. He remembered how she looked when she told her story, the pain in her eyes, the centuries of waiting. He remembered her voice when she warned him that strength without wisdom could destroy. He remembered the way she stood beside him in battle, not as a servant but as a true companion. And he realized something deep within his heart. A bond built on chains was not true friendship. To care for someone meant to wish for their freedom, even if it meant letting them go. At last, Raffi lifted his eyes. I understand now. You do not belong to me. You never did. You deserve to be free, Nira. Her glow shimmered softly, almost like a sigh. For a moment, her face carried both sadness and gratitude. Few would choose as you have. Most would cling to me for what I can give. Yet you choose to release me. That speaks more of your spirit than any wish could. The fire crackled between them, filling the silence. Above, the stars stretched endlessly, as if waiting for his final decision. Then it is settled, Raffi said at last. When the time comes, my last wish will be for your freedom. Nero looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were bright, but her voice trembled faintly. Know this, Raffi. If you free me, I will remember you. Across every star, I will remember the human who saw me not as a prize but as a person. The words filled his heart with both pride and sorrow. He smiled faintly, though his chest felt heavy. That is enough. To be remembered by you is more than I could ask. They sat together in silence, the desert wind brushing against them. No more words were needed. The choice had been made, and though it carried loss, it also carried truth. For Raffi, the last wish would not be for power, not for wealth, not even for protection. It would be for Nira's freedom. And for Nira, it was the first time in ages she believed it might truly happen. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. Raffi and Nira continued their journey together, walking through the vast desert and the small villages beyond. They helped people along the way, not with magic, but with kindness and wisdom. Raffi gave food where he could and shared his strength in work. Nira, though still bound, chose to use her gifts carefully, healing when sickness struck or calming storms that threatened to ruin the fields. The people who met them saw not a master and servant, but two companions who traveled side by side. Yet beneath every step, Raffi carried the weight of the last wish, and Nira carried the knowledge that her time with him was slowly coming to an end. One evening, they reached the edge of a wide mountain valley. The air was cool, and the sky burned with colors of gold and red as the sun dipped below the peaks. They built a small fire and sat together, the silence stretching between them like an unspoken truth. Raffi finally broke the quiet. "The time has come, Nira. I cannot wait any longer. If I do, another may come and try to take you, and I will not risk that." Nira turned her eyes to the horizon. "You are certain? Once spoken, the wish cannot be undone." Raffi nodded slowly. "I am certain. To keep you bound would only serve me. To free you will serve what is right. You deserve to choose your own path, not walk mine in chains." Nira's glow shimmered faintly. She looked at him with a softness that held both sorrow and gratitude. "Then speak, Raffi. Let your heart be your voice." Raffi stood. His hands shook slightly, not from fear but from the weight of the moment. He looked at Nira, the genie who had changed his life, who had shown him that true strength was not in wishes but in choices. "I wish," Raffi said clearly, "for Nira, the genie who has stood beside me, to be free." The desert air grew still, as if the world itself paused to listen. Then light burst from Nira's form, brighter than fire, brighter than the stars. It rose around her, a storm of silver and gold, swirling higher into the sky. The chains of magic that bound her unseen form shattered one by one, ringing like distant bells. Nira closed her eyes as the glow wrapped around her. For the first time in centuries, the weight of servitude lifted from her spirit. She was no longer tied to a vessel, no longer bound to the command of a human hand. She was free. When the light faded, Nira stood before Raffi, but her presence was different. She was no longer the genie of the lamp. She was something greater, radiant yet unchained. Her form seemed lighter, her glow steadier, and her eyes carried peace. "It is done," she said softly. "Your wish has broken the last of my chains. I am free." Raffi smiled faintly, though his heart ached. "That is how it should be." Nira stepped closer, her expression warm. "You could have chosen anything, Raffi. Riches, kingdoms, even immortality. Yet you chose my freedom. That choice will echo longer than you know." "I did not need those things," Raffi said. "What I needed, I already found. I found a friend. And that is more precious than gold." Her eyes glistened, though no tears fell. She reached out, placing her hand gently against his shoulder. "And I found something I had forgotten in all my years of waiting. I found trust." They stood in silence, knowing the moment of parting had come. The bond between genie and master had ended, but something deeper had formed, a bond of respect that even freedom could not erase. "I must go now," Nira said softly. "The skies call to me. I will walk the paths of wind and star once more. But I will never forget you." Rafi's chest tightened, but he managed a smile. "Then go with peace, Nira. May your freedom bring you joy." Her form began to rise, the winds lifting her gently into the twilight sky. Her glow shimmered against the stars, bright and beautiful, like a lantern carried into the heavens. Before she vanished, her voice drifted down, clear and strong. "Farewell, Raffi. Remember this. You showed me that humans are not only seekers of power. They are also givers of freedom. For that, humanity will always hold my respect." And with that, she was gone, her light fading into the endless night sky. Raffi stood alone, the fire flickering beside him. The desert was silent, yet he felt no emptiness. His journey was not over. He would continue walking, carrying her memory like a flame within him. Though he had given up his wishes, he had gained something greater, the knowledge that even a single choice could change the fate of another. As he looked up at the stars, one shone brighter than the rest, and he knew it was her. Somewhere, free at last, Nero was watching. And with a steady heart, Raffi began to walk forward, not with magic at his side, but with hope guiding his steps.